Saturday was an amazing Subway Series game between the Mets and the Yankees, and the Mets came out on top. This series is tied. The Mets are back in it.
You are Locked On Mets, your daily New York Mets podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello to all you amazing Mets fans. You're watching Locked On Mets, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm your host, Ryan Finkelstein. I've been covering the New York Mets on this show since the 2019 season. This is the only podcast that covers the Mets 7 days a week throughout the regular season. If you want to find some of my written work, you can do so over at justbaseball.com, where I work as the managing editor. Now, Saturday's game between the Mets and the Yankees was just awesome. It was a playoff game played in the middle of May, and it was one of those games where you're on the edge of your seat the entire way through, where each team is making great plays in the field, where it's decided late by the bullpens and those final outs, and who can get that one run across and get out of Dodge before the game gets extended any further. And that's exactly the type of game that you get to watch in the playoffs, and the Mets thrive in these types of games. And this is what I said going into the series. If a game turns into a slugfest, that's probably because it's the Yankees style of play, and the Yankees are going to win those big scoring games where they put up a bunch of runs. We saw that on Friday. But a tight game where it's about the bullpens late and it's about getting that one clutch hit or bringing in that one run, I really love the Mets. And they were able to even up this series and now make it a really exciting showdown on Sunday Night Baseball. Mets, Yankees, Fried, Peterson. It's going to be a lot of fun. But let's talk about what we saw in this game on Saturday. And got to start with Griffin Canning. A day after I talked about how Tyler McGill sort of showed that he might not be ready to pitch in those big moments. He might not be a guy that can hold on to his rotation spot with some guys coming off the injured list soon. Griffin Canning proved the opposite. Griffin Canning showed that he might be a guy that you want to hand the ball to in October. I thought the heartbeat was slow. He really let the Mets get settled into that game. When you're playing in an environment like Yankee Stadium in a Subway Series, early innings are so critical because your starting pitcher can lose you a game in the first 3 innings and just get you completely out of it. And that's what we saw from Tyler McGill on Friday night. But Griffin Canning came in and just settled everything. Retires the first 7 batters. Yes, he gave up a Yankee Stadium home run to the 8th batter he faced, DJ LeMahieu. That's fine, okay? He went opposite field, down the right field line, a 330-foot home run. Okay. But he really didn't throw a high-stress pitch until the 5th inning, unless you count every pitch thrown to Aaron Judge, which is always a high-stress pitch. But there wasn't really any Yankees rally until the 5th inning. He did give up a single after the homer in the 3rd. He gave up another single in the 4th inning, but no sustained rally. 5th inning, he issues a leadoff walk, his only walk allowed in the game, and then a base hit. So there was 2 runners on, nobody out, but he buckled down, gets a big strikeout, gets a line out, and then Aaron Judge hits a slow roller to Brett Baty, and Baty made a great play coming in on it. Baty made a couple of plays like that in this game, one barehanded, and just had an awesome game defensively at third base. I got a little bit more on Baty in the next segment when I talk about some takeaways I've had from just 2 games, but they've been impactful games with high stakes. So we're going to get into that in a little bit. But the Mets scored a couple of runs for Canning in the top of the 4th inning. Francisco Lindor with a leadoff walk, then back-to-back hits from Soto and Alonso, with Alonso's hit driving in Lindor. Brandon Nimmo strikes out without advancing the runners. So Juan Soto takes him to his own hands and steals third base. Awesome to see Soto taking it upon himself to get into position for a sacrifice fly. And that's maybe the difference in the game, or it is the difference in a 1-run game, as Mark Vientos was able to hit a sac fly, and Soto does him the favor as well, stealing on the first pitch. So it's able to reset Vientos's approach, where now he knows he doesn't have to get a base hit. He just has to get a fly ball. He came through in that spot, and the Mets took an early lead. 6th inning, Griffin Canning gives up that lead. Cody Bellinger hits a solo homer to lead things off and tie the game. Canning cannot get through that 6th inning. He got a ground out, then a couple of singles that weren't hit really hard, ground balls that made their way through the infield, but that brought on Huascar Brazoban, and Brazoban continues to be outstanding. Quiet, MVP of this game because he just got some massive outs, to stop the bleeding in that inning and prevent it from being a real rally and a crooked number for the Yankees. He gets a couple ground balls to get Canning out of that jam. One of them, Pete Alonso, is able to gun down a runner at the plate. So great play by Pete to come in on it, throw out the runner at home, and that was able to really get the Mets through that inning. Brazoban stays on and, again, gets a couple ground balls, and then he strikes out Aaron Judge. Phase 5 batters got them all out with an Aaron Judge strikeout. An awesome performance by Brazoban. The top of the 7th inning, we saw the Yankees play some great defense as well. Brett Baty, he didn't get a hit. I can't remember who got the hit. Was it Terrence? Terrence got on? I think it was Terrence. But regardless, Baty hits a ground out, beats out the double play. Probably double play the Yankees should have turned, to be honest. But Baty's on first when Tyrone Taylor's up. Taylor hits the double into left center field. Baty tries to score from first, but a perfect relay from Cody Bellinger to Anthony Volpe to the plate. Baty didn't have the best slide, but honestly, it was just a great play that came down to a bang, bang play, and he ends up getting tagged out just before the foot crosses the plate. And so that was, again, another example of how awesome this game was, where you have the Mets cut down a runner at the plate with Pete Alonso the half inning before, and the Yankees cut down a runner, and it all stays tied. Just an awesome game. Obviously, it wasn't awesome in that moment that Baty didn't score, but we can look back on it fondly now, considering the fact that the Mets get the W at the end of the day. Now, Reed Garrett had an adventure of an 8th inning after Brazoban had been so great. A leadoff walk, then double play ball makes you think, okay, could be an easy inning. And then he gives up another walk, and then a double, then a third walk, loads the bases. Luckily, a line out hit at Juan Soto allows Garrett to escape, having put up a 0. And then in the top of the 9th inning, Luis Torrens gets on with a 1-out walk. Luisangel Acuna comes on to pinch run. Brett Baty, it's a hard ground ball that ends able to get an infield hit. I think it was DJ LeMay who couldn't come up with it cleanly. That puts 2 runners on for Tyrone Taylor. Taylor gets hit by a pitch. Yankees felt like he swung, but the Mets will take it. Bases loaded for Francisco Lindor. He hits a shallow fly ball, but this is where Acuna is able to impact the game even when he doesn't start. Pinch runs, is on third base in that moment, and scores easily on a ball that didn't even travel 300 feet. So a huge, huge moment for Acuna to come through with his legs, and ultimately that proves to be the difference in the game. The combination of Juan Soto stealing third and scoring on a sac fly, and then here's Acuna, who gets on third base through a series of events, and then shallow fly ball scores. The Mets win this game on a couple of sac flies. That shows you how tight it was and how great of a game it was, really. And it all ends in absolute, movie fashion, where it's the best pitcher versus the best hitter, Edwin Diaz versus Aaron Judge. And before that, Edwin Diaz sort of showed that he was feeling good. The velocity was up. He struck out Austin Wells at the beginning of that inning, and it was one of those strikeouts where he gets a first pitch strike, and then he just throws a bunch of junk up there. And Austin Wells eventually was going to chase himself out of that bat, and he did. Strikes out on a foul tip. And then Ben Rice hits a soft liner. Baty again makes a nice play. Didn't look very difficult, but I promise you, Mark Vientos might not have made that play. Brett Baty on his toes, able to get there, make the catch on the soft liner. And then you have a battle in a 1-run game, Diaz versus Judge. And Edwin Diaz gets the job done. A strikeout on a fastball. He blows past Aaron Judge at 99 miles per hour. Hit 100 in that at bat as well. So really great to see Edwin Diaz looking like the guy that we've seen in the past, the flashes of brilliance that you'll get from Diaz. Can he sustain it? Hopefully. He's been a lot better lately, picks up his 10th save of the season, and that's the guy the Mets are going to need if they want to win big this year, which leads me into the next segment. I want to talk about 5 takeaways I've had from this series about what it will take for the Mets to win big. We'll get to all that in just a minute. Today's episode is brought to you by Supply House. Get supplies you need from the site that's made for skilled trades, Supply House. Whether you're in plumbing, HVAC, or electrical work, Supply House is the reliable way to order products online. Their easy-to-use website is packed with helpful resources and the latest product info to help you get the job done right. Plus, with a complete inventory of over 200,000 parts from 400 plus top brands, you'll find exactly what you need delivered fast from coast to coast. Need help with an order? Supply House offers expert support and industry-leading service, so you'll always talk to a real person. And for trade pros looking for an extra edge, their free Trade Master program offers exclusive perks like a dedicated phone line, free shipping, and discounts on every order. Thousands of skilled professionals are already taking advantage. Now it's your turn. Join the Trade Master program today at supplyhouse.com/TM and start ordering plumbing, HVAC, and electrical supplies with just a few clicks. Plus, use promo code SH5 for 5% off your first order. That's supplyhouse.com. If you're an everydayer that's always tuning into the show, make sure you become a Locked On Mets insider. This is our texting service where you get updates from me anytime news breaks from the match. You can ask me questions anytime, take part in our Locked On Mets sign photo giveaways, and you get the lineup graphics sent to your phone each day so you know who's in the starting lineup without ever having to go on social media. If you want to be a Locked On Mets insider, find the link in the episode description. Go to subtext.com/LockedOnMets. Now, I know it's only been 2 games, Mets versus Yankees, but these are really intense games played on enemy territory in a packed ballpark. And for me, I've learned some things about what it's going to take for the Mets to win big come October. So I have 5 takeaways from this series so far with 1 game left to play. The first one, Griffin Canning looks like a rotation mainstay and a guy that, again, could be handed the ball in October. And I don't know if I'm going to feel bad about that. Griffin Canning has really just been a revelation for the New York Mets. He's got a 2.47 ERA now through 9 starts. He's got 46 strikeouts and 47 and a third innings pitched. And that's important because last year he struck out 130 and 171 and 2/3 innings pitched. The year before, when he pitched to a 4.32 ERA with the Angels, he had 139 strikeouts, 127 innings pitched. So it just shows you last year he was well below a strikeout per inning. This year, he's right back to about a strikeout per inning because that stuff is so much better. He has figured out his fastball a little bit more. They were talking about it during the game, how they changed the grip up on him, and that has really helped him get that ride on his fastball to play up in the zone. He has tweaked his arsenal, and now he's focusing on that slider a lot more, his best pitch, as well as the changeup. And the Mets have really figured out how to sequence his pitches properly, and it just seems like a guy that was probably much better than he has shown in his career at the Angels that just wasn't getting the support. And it's a guy that I've talked about it. He does everything that you'd want out of a starting pitcher. The pitchability, the way he holds on runners, the way he fields his position, and the way that he attacks and isn't afraid. I mean, here's a guy that went up against Aaron Judge and won time and again in this game and didn't have any fear about it. Faces Judge with a couple runners on and gets the soft hit ground ball and didn't pitch around him, went after him. And that's what you have to do because, yes, Aaron Judge is going to burn you. But you know what? If you're scared of him, what's going to happen? You're going to put him into a really good hitter's count, and you're either going to try to steal a strike and he's going to really make you pay, or you're going to walk him, you're going to put yourself in a bigger hole, and the next guy behind him in the lineup is going to make you pay. So I really feel like Griffin Canning is having a breakout season at 29 years old with the New York Mets. I'm wishing the Mets had signed him to a multi-year deal, which is hilarious because originally I thought, why are they signing him? They have so much pitching depth. Well, now it's pretty clear to me he's better than Tyler McGill. He's better than Paul Blackburn. So he's already moved up a couple spots in this rotation. And I find it hard to believe that he's even going to be on the hot seat at any point this year. Yeah, things can change and things can evolve and opinions can ultimately alter as well. But what Griffin Canning has done so far, I think, is legit. Is he going to pitch to a 2.47 all year? Probably not. That ERA is going to tick up at some point. But is this going to be a career year for Griffin Canning? I certainly think it is. And the best he really did in the season was 2023 when a 4.32 ERA. As I mentioned, I think he's going to do better than that. I think he might pitch sub-4 this year when it comes to the ERA. And I also feel as good about Canning as almost anyone in this rotation to be able to navigate the marathon after throwing 170 innings last year. I think he's a guy that should be able to stay in this rotation, start after start to start, and still have something left in the tank come October. So I think a big takeaway from this series is sort of two-sided. It's Canning looks like he's here to stay. McGill's kind of on the hot seat, but that's not one of my 5 takeaways on McGill. The second one I have is Edwin Diaz still has it in him to be the best closer in baseball. Now, there's a lot of good closers in the game. And it's almost when you talk about best closer in baseball, you talk about best closer in baseball or best starting pitcher, best ace, there's usually a couple guys that sort of fit that narrative, fit that build. And does Diaz still have it in him to rise to the moment and be the guy that gets the final out of a World Series or any playoff series? He still has it in him. He still has the stuff that hasn't gone away. Here we see him in this outing up to 100 on the fastball, up to 91 with the slider. He still has that in the tank, and I do think he is rounding into form a little bit. It's been a lot better lately. Let me see how many appearances in a row it is for Edwin Diaz where we've seen this great version. For one, he's got his ERA down to 3. At one point this season, his ERA had climbed up to 7.94, and that was when he gave up a couple of runs in that game against the Athletics. Since then, it's been, 1, 2, 3. Well, he did go running against the Phillies. This month in 6 innings, it's no runs, 3 hits, 1 walk, 6 strikeouts. And he had a pretty good stretch where it was 5 of 6 appearances at the end of April where he didn't give a run. Actually, no, it looks like 5 of 6. So you're looking at a stretch now that's been over 10 appearances where he's been very solid for this Mets bullpen. It's looking a lot more like Edwin Diaz, the lights out closer, and that's huge for this team to be able to win when it matters most. They're going to need Edwin Diaz. I mean, they might get another high leverage reliever at the deadline. You never know what this team is going to look like come October. Who knows? In October, Nolan McLean can be a reliever, or McLean. I keep on butchering that. We're going to talk about McLean in the next segment because he had a little bit of a rougher start this week in Syracuse. But again, I don't know what this Mets bullpen looks like in October, but I know the guy that's going to be the closer, and he still has that in him to be the closer the Mets will need to win it all. And I think the third takeaway I have from this series, which is an interesting one, and it's really specific to the game on Saturday today, Brett Baty. If the Mets are going to be at their best come the playoffs, Brett Baty is going to be the starting third baseman. And this is sort of twofold. It's not just a knock on Vientos' defense. This is a combination of, for the Mets to be at their best, it's Baty at third, Vientos at DH, which means that Baty has hit. So it's needing Brett Baty to continue to hit to warrant being the starting third baseman. It's not saying Mark Vientos should be on the bench. I think Mark Vientos is still one of the 5 best hitters on this team. And I don't know if the deadline will change that. Like, I don't know if the Mets are going to get a bat better than Mark Vientos at this deadline. And I still think that Mark Vientos is a better hitter than Brett Baty. But the defense that Brett Baty showed in this game, that is the defense you need to win when games really matter in October, where every single out is so critical. To be able to have Brett Baty and Francisco Lindor on that left side of the infield, that could be huge for this team. Because while I think Mark Vientos did a fantastic job for a guy that's never been known for his glove last year, this year the defense hasn't looked as good. And honestly, not playing as frequently isn't going to help that. But I just think that you are so much better served going into playoff games, being able to keep Mark Vientos as your DH where you just don't have to worry about him. You don't have to think about subbing him out late in games. And if Brett Baty can hit enough from now up until that point, they can grab this third base job. He is just so much more athletic at the position and coming in on balls. It's night and day to be able to have Brett Baty to steal you some outs or to be able to make those tough plays, turn the tough double play when you need it. I just think that this team looks so much better defensively when you have Baty at third. And honestly, Acuna at second, but I don't think that the drop-off from Jeff McNeil to Luisangel Acuna is anywhere near as steep as the drop-off from Brett Baty to Mark Vientos. I think you can win playoff games with Jeff McNeil as your starting second baseman if he has proven to be a better hitter by that point in the season. and the Mets lineup is best served to have Acuna on the bench, which is, ironically enough, my third takeaway here. Luisangel Acuna does not have to be a starting player to be an impact player for the New York Mets because of his versatility, because of his speed, his ability to pinch run. Acuna can be a bench piece on this team, and that might be okay. Now, I'm not saying stop playing the kid. I'm not. He's still hitting 264 this season, but he has gone through a little bit of a slump here. His last 7 games hitting 111, his last 15 games hitting 227. It has been a little bit of a struggle lately. And the reality is, Luisangel Acuna is not going to hit for much power. So unless he starts drawing more walks or he's hitting for a very high average, he's always going to be a little bit of a subpar offensive player. But he still can be a huge piece of this team for years to come. And that's sort of the balance that I've wondered about Acuna for a long time now. I've talked about in this show. I think this guy is absolutely a big leaguer, and he is an impact big leaguer because he's such a good defender. He's such a great athlete. He's got so much speed. I don't know if he's going to be an above average regular with the bat. I really don't. And when you are a winning team that is, gunning for the division, you don't have all the time in the world to let him get those starts. And if Jeff McNeil and Brett Baty are swinging the bat better than Acuna, you might have to lean into those guys. And who knows, we could be at a point when Jose Siri is ready to return. Probably not, because they have Jose Azocar on the roster, but let's say when Jose Siri and Jesse Winker are ready to return, where if Brett Baty has hit enough up to that point, there is a world where Acuna does see some Syracuse this season, because when they get Winker back, they might decide, all right, well, we're going to get Baty in the lineup at second base a little bit more, and we're going to have Winker at DH some, and Jose Siri can be the pinch runner and all that. So again, this is not me saying that I'm giving up on Acuna. Not at all. I still think right now you got to play him a bunch. I still want to see Acuna getting in there while he's on this roster for at least 3, if not 4 starts a week. But I think what he proved in this game is he doesn't have to be starting and out there the whole entire game to make an impact. Luisangel Acuna could be a final 3 innings of the game player and win you baseball games. And we saw that with his ability to score on that shallow fly ball. So I think that's another takeaway I had here. The Mets don't need Acuna to solidify second base. They have a lot of options there that they can go to. Third base is one where I'm wondering a little bit more. What's the Mets' best option there? And you never know. Acuna could hit all season, and we might find out that it's Acuna at third base, not Baty, or it might be Mauricio at third base, not Baty. And by the way, little tidbit on Ronnie Mauricio, his rehab stint technically has ended because he's made his way up to AAA, and so the Mets have officially made that designation of optioning him to AAA. He's essentially been on MLB rehab assignment all year because he's on the 40-man roster. Now he is a healthy player in Syracuse, and it'll be good to follow his continued progression as he needs to start getting in the lineup every single day, or get to the point where he can be in the lineup every single day and playing every inning before he can really be an option for the Mets. But that is another option the Mets will have at some point. Now, my final takeaway from what I've learned from this Subway Series so far is that nothing would be more fun than a Subway World Series. Nothing would be more fun at all. 25 years after the original Subway Series World Series, a rematch this year with all of the Juan Soto drama, it would be theater, and I hope we get it, but at least we have one more game between these two teams. In the final segment today, I will do a little bit of a preview of that game, but also I want to talk about some of the top pitching prospects in the Mets system and give you an update on what they did in their starts this week. We also have a roster move to discuss. Daniel Nunez got sent down, so I'm going to cover all of that in just a minute. If you're watching on YouTube today, do me a favor and hit that subscribe button. Help us get to our next goal of 14,000 subscribers. All right, so let's talk about the roster move first and foremost. Daniel Nunez sent down to AAA, and Jose Castillo plugged into the bullpen. The reality behind Daniel Nunez going down is he didn't look great. I mean, we all saw it. I talked about on yesterday's show how there was one of two options for the Mets. Either they send down Daniel Nunez, who started to look better his last couple of appearances, but overall still did not look anywhere close to the guy we saw last year, or send down Max Kranick, someone who's been a big part of this bullpen this year, but has given up a lot of runs lately. I can't remember the exact number, but it's like 6 of his last appearances, I believe, something along those lines. He has allowed runs in his appearances out of the bullpen. I'll look it up to give you the exact stat in a second here. But to me, those were the two options. And I still think Kranick is not quite on the hot seat, but he's certainly further down in the pecking order than Huascar Brazoban at this point, who's not going anywhere this season. He's been unbelievable. And counting it out now, it's 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 of his last 5, Max Kranick has given up a run. Actually, no, 5 of his last 6 appearances this month, he has given up a run. He's got a 6.75 ERA in May, but he's good for now because you know what? Kranick is still a much more valuable piece of this bullpen right now, with his ability to really soak up innings. And so if those innings are coming a little bit of lower leverage right now, while Brazoban is getting the higher leverage innings, totally cool. And Jose Castillo, it's going to be good to see what the Mets have here. He hasn't had a lot of big league success, but as Carlos Mendoza noted in his pre-game presser today, he was a top prospect at one point. He throws hard. He's got a good breaking ball. And he also mentioned, Mendoza did, that the Yankees, the Red Sox, the Dodgers, there's a lot of tough lefties. So I think the Mets saw an opportunity to pick up a guy for cash that has good stuff that they could plug into their bullpen along with Genesis Cabrera, and sort of let these two guys kind of go through an audition through some of the best teams in baseball. And then once you get to the end of this road of games, maybe it is Paul Blackburn that's coming up and one of those lefties that's getting DFA'd. Paul Blackburn, talked about him on yesterday's show. He just made a rehab start. He's going to make another one, Carlos Mendoza said, if not another one after that. So the Mets, again, might be kicking the can down the road on Blackburn until they need a 6th starter in their rotation. So in the meantime, we could see an extended run with Jose Castillo and Jesus Cabrera, or Jose Castillo could come into a game and have a bad outing, and the Mets could cycle another arm up from Syracuse. But that is where they are at right now with their roster. Now let's run through some of the top pitching prospects in this system and what they've done this week. I already talked about Brandon Sproat earlier on this week. Had a rough outing, gave up like 4 runs and 4 1/3, maybe even more than that. Might have been 6 runs and 4 1/3 in Syracuse earlier on. I think that was, what was that, Wednesday's outing? Yeah, Thursday it was Nolan McLean. So on Thursday, Nolan McLean got his 2nd start with Syracuse, gave up 4 runs on 5 hits, walked 6, struck out 4 over 5 innings, allowed 2 home runs. So a rough start, and that's becoming commonplace for these guys. It's a tough level to pitch out. You're not seeing anyone have sustained success in Syracuse if you're a Mets top pitching prospect, except for Christian Scott last year, who had no problem with it. But Brandon Sproat has had struggles this year. Blade Tidwell has had struggles this year, and Nolan McLean now has a rough start on his ledger. Looking at the stats again, it was 6 runs allowed by Brandon Sproat his start this week. He gave up 3 runs. He hit 3 batters. He walked 3 batters. He gave up 4 hits. So a really rough outing for Sproat. McLean was able to get through 6 innings. So that was it 6? Oh, 5 innings actually. So at least he was able to do that, but definitely a rougher start than his first time out, where he just cruised through his initial AAA debut start. Now, Blade Tidwell had the best start of the week of the top prospects in Syracuse. He started on Friday, had a good outing, allowed 2 runs, but only one of them earned on 5 hits and 3 walks, struck out 6 in 5 innings pitched, has his ERA in the season down to 4.08. So Tidwell, I think probably for the most part, has been the best of the bunch in AAA just because he's got more action than McLean has. But this week, he's the one guy definitely that had the best start. Although, if you're talking about the whole system, Jonah Tong continues his heater in AA. He might be joining that AAA rotation at some point. I don't know how soon, because personally, I don't mind seeing Tong just lighten up AA for a while at 21 years old. And if anything, it's probably a good idea to keep him there, maybe through the deadline, just because you don't know what you're going to need. And I think the Mets, even though Sproat's going through his struggles in AAA, I still think they'd probably prefer to dangle Tong over Sproat or McLean, because those guys are maybe a little more projectable as big league pitchers because they have more well-rounded arsenals. And Jonah Tong is relying heavily on his fastball, which is great. And it's a fastball that's improving, is adding velocity to it. But guys in higher levels of the minor leagues than once you get into the big leagues are going to be able to handle his high velocity, high ride fastball up in the zone a lot more than these hitters in Double-A might. And so it's not to say that that pitch won't, be one that will absolutely be a big league caliber pitch. It's going to get guys out, but I think he has more that he has to figure out to round out his arsenal to be a big league starter than McLean and Sproat right now. And so why not keep one of these guys in Double-A? Because he's still going to get challenged in Double-A. He's 21 years old. Have him stay there through the deadline, just because if he continues to put up incredible numbers, other teams are going to really, really value him. And if you have to pull off the big blockbuster trade and you have to give up one of these top pitching prospects, it might be Tong. Personally, I love for them to keep all these guys and just be able to actually have a homegrown rotation that is really worth something next year and beyond. So we'll see. But again, this start, Jonah Tong allows 2 hits, walks 2, does not give up any runs, strikes out 8 over 6 innings pitched. He's now made 7 starts this season in Double-A. He's got 59 strikeouts in 34 innings pitched, and he's really cut down his walks a lot this month. So that is a good sign as he has honed in on his control. He's turned into outstanding innings. For those of you who might not have heard me talking about it last week, he was 1 out away from a 7-inning perfect game in Double-A where he struck out 13. So of the 20 outs that he got, 13 were via the strikeout. He didn't get a strikeout in that final inning. So it was 13 of the first 18 guys that he faced. He struck out, and he did not give up a hit or a walk. So he is on a real heater right now. And I'm excited to see what he continues to do in Double-A. Final part of the show, Game 3 preview of the Subway Series. It's David Peterson versus Max Fried. Battle of a couple of left-handers. Fried has a 1.11 ERA this year. He is one of the leading candidates to be the AL Cy Young. Tarek Skubal is still the betting favorite. But right now, looking at the odds, I'd throw my money on Fried just because I think when I last checked, I wrote the article for us at Just Baseball. And I believe the odds on Skubal was, I want to say it was like plus 150, and I think Fried was plus 400. So you're getting some better odds where you can win a little bit more for the money that you put down. And I could just see Max Fried having a narrative to be the AL Cy Young, because here he is filling in for Garrett Cole, the first free agent contract that they gave out. They're missing out on Juan Soto, and he turns in the best year of his career and leads the Yankees to a division title and X, Y, and Z. And I could just see, sports writers eating that up in the BBWAA and throwing a lot of first place votes his way, especially because there's sometimes that voter fatigue on voting for a guy to win the award back to back. So that could be one thing that kind of factors against Skubal if the numbers are close. And I could absolutely see Fried, being that guy. But you know what? Maybe the Mets can show that Fried was just due to give up a bunch of runs, and they can pile on early in this game. And maybe Max Fried is kind of knocked a little bit further down the pecking order for the Cy Young because his ERA doubles with a bad start. We can all hope for that, but I think it's going to be another game. If I had to guess, that's going to mirror the one that we just watched on Saturday more than the one that we saw on Friday, where we got Sunday Night Baseball, 2 good teams. I'm excited to see David Peterson trying to rise to the moment. He was great in the playoffs last year. You know that he is comfortable in this type of an atmosphere. He's not going to be fazed by it. So I'll be really curious to see how he holds up against a good Yankees lineup, to see how the Mets can handle Fried and potentially get him out of the game. I think if you're not going to beat him, get him out of the game. Work his counts. Don't let him stay on the mound through 7-8 innings, because I still think the Mets have the bullpen edge in this series. And maybe that'll be what plays out that allows them to get another narrow victory. Who knows? Maybe the bats come alive and we're just talking about a really thrilling end to this series. And Mets fans can puff their chest out when they go out to work on Monday. It's going to be an awesome game. Cannot wait to watch it. It's almost a shame that it's Sunday Night Baseball because we got to wait all the way until tonight to do it as you guys are listening on a Sunday morning. But I appreciate you all for tuning in. I'll be back with another show tomorrow morning where I'll be breaking down whatever we watched in the Subway Series finale and previewing what lies ahead as the Mets will be traveling to Boston to square off against the Red Sox. As always, thank you all for listening. Make sure you follow, rate, and review wherever you get your podcasts. Follow me on social media at Finkelstein Ryan. Follow the show at Locked On Mets. If you want to be a Locked On Mets insider, find the link in the episode description. Go to subtext.com/Locked On Mets. Thank you for making Locked On Mets your first listen or your first watch every day. Now, for your second watch, check out Locked On MLB Game Night. This is the show that'll bring you through the MLB action each day throughout the season. Find Locked On MLB Game Night on the Locked On MLB YouTube channel or the Locked On MLB podcast feed.